So, for today's project, we're going to work on installing a line lock in my Nova. Because you know what muscle cars are supposed to do. Big, smoky, burnouts. Let's get you turned around. So let's show you what I got going on. So here's my line lock. So as you can see, I already started with putting it together, but I'm gonna go ahead and kind of give an overview of the line lock so that at least maybe this would help someone somehow when they're setting up their line lock. So the first thing you got to do is actually find where you want to mount the line lock. So in this case, we're gonna go over to the car, and I opted to mount the line lock right on the bracket that the proportion valve uses to attach to, the whole thing, the setup. So I went to, and I'm going to show photos of this, I went to Home Depot Motorsports, at least that's what I call it, and I bought myself a framing bracket. And then I cut the framing bracket to mend it perfectly to the proportion valve bracket. And I welded it together and I painted it black. And then for the mounting hose, I just used some rivet nuts. And there you go. You got a bracket that's attached to the master cylinder, in this case the Hydro Boost unit, and it's all one package deal. I wanted to make sure to keep everything in one place. Just makes it easier for me. So that's the first thing, and I'll show some pictures right now so you can see how I actually created this bracket, and we'll move on to the line lock. So back on the line lock. So when you get this, it comes with this little fitting here, which is a 1/8 NPT fitting, and it came with two of them. With this unit, you'll see that there's a little M. So there's one inlet. So this goes from the master cylinder or the proportion valve, and I'll touch on that in a bit. And then these three are the outlets. So all these ports, all four of these ports, are 1/8 inch NPT, 1/8 NPT. So that's the first thing. Okay, so I use one to block it off, and now I need to get, these guys. So you have to purchase these fittings, and then you have the choice of getting the 90-degree fitting or the straight fitting. And so what you want to do is you want to get 1/8 NPT male to 3/8-24 inverted flare. And so this is a straight, and then this is a 90. So you choose what you want to do for your particular setup. I chose 90 degrees for all of them. It just made it easier. Now, for the proportion valve, and a little on this, the proportion valve is set up, at least on my Nova. This is a PV4, and this is just an extra one I had laying around. This will focus. So there, one I had laying around. So I'm gonna take this opportunity, since I have it, to show you basically how I attach it. So on the car, we have a line going from the master cylinder into the inlet here for the proportion valve, and then from there the proportion valve, it basically turns into a T. So you have one outlet here on the top and one outlet on the bottom. And each of those outlets go to each of the wheels. So one goes to the left wheel, the other one goes to the right wheel. This is both for the front. For the back, we just have one line going in and one big line coming out, and it goes to the back wheels, and then there's a T on the differential, and then from the T it goes to each of the two rear tires. So that we got situated. Now, for this line lock, I actually have 3 ports. So as you can see, I already blocked off one, and I decided to use the 2 ports for each of the front tires, eliminating the need for a T, which that's what this proportion block is, eliminating the need for a T on the proportion valve. So I chose to have the line go from the master cylinder to the proportion valve, then from the proportion valve to the line lock. So that meant that I needed to create one new line. So it's not that hard. So what I did was I went online and ordered this kit right here, which came with 2 of these brake lines. They're already flared. They already have the fittings on there. And so I used one of them. As you can see, they come like this. You know, they come like this when you buy it. So I used one to already have my first bend. Okay, and remember, I have my line lock attached right here to the proportion valve with a new bracket that I put there. So we have the line going from there, and then all I had to do was create this bend right here. That's it, just one bend. Cut the brake line with one of these, and then deburr it with one of these. And I'll give you the part number for that. So that's the part number for the deburring tool. And then recreate a new flare, and I use the Eastwood system, but you don't have to get the Eastwood, you can just get any flaring. And then I was able to put it into my fitting here, my 90-degree fitting there. Super easy. All I did just create one bend. Now, as far as the brake lines, how are you going to do the brake lines? Because, well, I removed the brake lines from the proportion valve. Well, the one thing you have to do with the proportion valve is get one of these plugs, which are 3/8-24. And this screws right into the proportion valve, thereby blocking it off completely. So this is no longer a T when you block it off. And I chose to block off the bottom one. And I just put this one on the top so you can see how it screws in. So I chose to block off the bottom fitting and only use the top. And this is where my new T is going to be for my front brakes. Now for the brakes, the brake lines themselves, these are the fronts, and I'll attach a photo, but this brake line originally came across and went into my proportion valve. And then the other one, which is down here, this one went and attached to the bottom of the proportion valve. And you can see there in the bottom, I installed one of the plugs. Okay, so that plug is permanent, so that I eliminate the proportion valve T, because I now have a new T with the line lock. And then the line, you know, the other line for the line lock, the feed line, will be right here. I have it blocked off now because, you know, I don't want brake fluid flowing and ruining my inner fender. But that's where the line will come in. You'll see it in the end when I have it all hooked up. But the only other thing that I had to do was actually reuse these brake lines. These are the factory brake lines, and I just rebent them so that they go to my line lock. And you'll see it at the end how it looks, but that gives you an idea of how it looks. It was super easy. As you can see, this one already had the curve because it was going here. I just kind of bent it, you know, by hand, very slowly. Make sure I don't get no kinks. You can see it came out really nice there. Get some light on there so you can see no kinks. And that one went into one of the fittings for the line lock. And then this one, I used the tool to get this curve. And then I already had the curve here because remember, it attached to this. and I use that to go into the line lock. Now, that is why you see one of the fittings going in, you know, so that you can have an attachment from the bottom, and one going in towards the line lock. That's why I chose to have 90s. So that's pretty straightforward. And then after you attach it, you got to bleed the brakes, and you're pretty much done. You test it out, and that is for the mechanical portion of the line lock. So I wanted to touch up on a couple of things that might be helpful when doing something like this kind of job. Now, when you get the line lock, obviously, as I explained earlier, the line lock holes, all 4 ports on the line lock are NPT fittings. And with NPT fittings, it's advisable that you use some type of thread sealant on there so that you don't get any leaks. Most people would say slap some thread, you know, some Teflon tape on there. And I don't like Teflon tape. Let me tell you why. Teflon tape, I took a piece and I submerged it in brake fluid, and I left it there for a couple days, and I found that the Teflon tape does not break down. That's a good thing. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. That's actually a good thing, because then you know that brake fluid is not going to break it down and the threads are nicely sealed. But what I have a problem with is the fact that it does not break down, and if a little piece was to get in your braking system, it's going to be floating around in there and probably causing havoc. And brakes is the most important part of the car. You need the car to stop. You know, going fast is all nice and dandy, but stopping the car is the most important thing. So I'm against using Teflon tape because of that fear of, you know, having something go into the braking system. So instead, I use Loctite 545 thread sealing. Now, I'm not getting paid to you know, to talk about this. I'm not getting sponsored or anything, but I just want to, you know, share my experience. Basically, it's a pneumatic thread sealant, and it's purple, as you can see, and this stuff rocks. You put it on there, okay, on the threads. I usually skip the first 2 threads and just put it on there, take my other finger and kind of spread it on there, and then screw it in. When that dries, you have a leak-free seal. And if you do a search on it and see the specs on this after it dries, I mean, this stuff this stuff rocks. It's resistant to gas, brake fluid, many solvents. I mean, it's pretty much indestructible. So pick yourself up some Loctite 545 and use that instead of Teflon tape. So that's the first thing I wanted to cover. The second thing is, as far as the brake lines themselves, you can see that they're flared, and the brake lines are double flared. Well, they're inverted flares and the brake lines are double flared. You do not need to put Loctite thread sealant on the threads of the brake lines, because the fittings themselves is not what's sealing. What is actually sealing is the double flare against the inverted flare on these connections. So if you have a leak, what I normally do is I'll tighten it, and if I find that there's a little bit of a leak, I'll tighten it 1/8 of a turn more to stop the leak. Okay, so basically you don't want to gorilla tight it, you know, all the way. You just want it tight enough to where it's not leaking anymore. So that's the second thing. The third and final thing I want to touch on is the proportion valve itself. Now, when you're bleeding brakes, okay, we normally have this in there, this little sensor thing that would turn on if it detected a leak. You know, it'll show up on your dashboard. Now, this thing, you can see, has a little point. Okay, so inside this, we have a little valve that moves back and forth, and the way it works is that little valve will move towards the leak to seal off that side. So if you had a leak on the rear, it'll move towards the rear. If you have a leak on the front, it'll move towards the front. Okay, when it moves, it'll push up on this little pin. You can see it moves, and your brake light will come on. Now, I'll do a video on this. I'll break this down and I'll show you what it looks like on the inside in another video, but I just want to get to the point. Okay, so this thing will move, much like this is actually a point that goes in there. Okay, when you crack open the system to do the bleeding, I suggest you pick up one of these brake proportion valve bleeder tools. Okay, this thing has a little point, and obviously the point cannot move. So when you screw it in, okay, and you screw it in all the way down, it'll make contact with the little piston in there, and it will prevent it from moving back and forth. So that way you can bleed freely, because if this piston was to move as you're bleeding and it goes all the way to the end, it will actually block the flow of your brake fluid, and then you can't successfully bleed the brakes. So you want that thing to stay right in the center, and this makes it easy. Now me, to make it even easier for myself, as you can see, I ground it down. I didn't do a great job, but I was trying to make this shape, and obviously you see my handiwork. I didn't get it to do that, but it serves its purpose. It will actually thread in there with a tool, and that's basically what I wanted to do, because I have brake lines coming up here on my proportion valve, and to do it by hand was kind of difficult. So I wanted to make this tool so that I could actually use a ratchet to actually screw this down. So those are the three things that I wanted to cover as far as when you're bleeding the brake. Hopefully that helps someone out there. And well, you know, let's show you how it looks with it fully installed. So there it is. Line lock is installed. Give you a look-see. So we have the master cylinder, and then from the master cylinder it goes into the proportion valve, and then from the proportion valve right here on the top port we have my line that I created, and it goes into the line lock. And on the bottom here we have here the little port blocked off with the block off plug, so that came out sweet. And give you a look on the side here. So we have the brake lines, they coil, and one goes to the side here, as you can see, and then the other one you can see in the back there is the routing there, and it goes over to this one here in the bottom. Let's see if I can get it down in there so you can kind of see how it goes down in there. So that came out good. I'm pretty happy with the way it came out. It looks clean. It's not going to go anywhere because it's attached to the actual bracket that's attached to the proportion valve. The brake lines, though they were rerouted, I don't have to worry about them vibrating because my line lock is attached directly to the same bracket that the proportion valve is attached to. So it came out really good. So I'm happy with it. Clean looking. And I kind of cleaned up that that new line that I created, this one here, and it kind of looks polished. I wasn't trying to polish it, but kind of came out that way. And then right here, look-see, so we got the Hydro Boost, we got the Corvette master cylinder, and then we got my proportion valve, and this here is that little dummy light for the proportion valve in the event that you had a leak. And you can see what I was talking about, you know, kind of put my hand in there to twist it. It was kind of hard, so I made that tool to just kind of make it, you know, easy to remove. And the same size that I chose, which was 5/8 inch, is the size that I used to take out that plug. So the same socket, I'll take out the plug, and then I'll put in my proportion valve bleeder tool. So that came out really nice. Really nice. Almost looks like the car came with it. You know, like it's a factory option. Huh. So another thing I did was here, I'll give you a look-see at this. My Wilwood calipers, if you've seen past video, my Wilwood calipers were kind of faded. They were silver in color, and so let's get the light there. The word Wilwood was silver, and it was fading out. And so what I did was I took some M105, Meguiar's M105 polishing compound, and I gave it a good polish. And while polishing, the Wilwood actually came off. So then I went ahead and I ordered the Wilwood emblem, which was the exact replica of the one that was on the Wilwood caliper. And I just kind of, you know, aligned it and stuck it on there. It came out really, really nice because, you know, the theme is black and red, and I never really liked the silver Wilwood name on the red calipers. I like this so much better, so I finally got this to where I like it. So I'm really happy with that. Really, really happy with that. So anyway, one more look at the line lock, how it was installed. It came out really nice. So if you like it, hit the like button, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss future updates, because in the next video we're going to talk about the wiring, because you know I hooked it up and everything, and I'm going to put the wheels back on and then go take it for a nice test drive to make sure my brakes work. And then we'll work on the electrical portion of the line lock, where we actually are able to turn it on and off. And that will be featured in the next video. So hit that subscribe button, don't forget that notification bell. And of course, if you want to hit me up on Instagram, you can do so. You know, there's a link in the description box below. And as always, hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching.